Hello, this is Stephen Alter. I'm very happy to be part of Woodstock's virtual homecoming. I'm going to be reading from my new book, Feral Dreams, Mowgli and His Mothers. This book just came out on the 10th of October 2020. Like many of you, I grew up with the Mowgli stories, Rudyard Kipling's Jungle Books, and they have been always part of my imagination. And for many years, I wanted to revisit those stories and retell the Mowgli story in a more contemporary setting. So this book is set between 1960 and 1967, a period of my own childhood, and it takes Mowgli's story forward in that way. The section I'm going to read is the opening passage of the book, part of the first chapter, which I don't believe needs too much explanation. The boy climbed down out of the banyan tree and lowered himself to the ground by one of the aerial roots. It was late in the day, and there was no breeze in the forest. Even the noisiest birds were silent, and the only sound nearby was the humming of insects. Amid still green shadows, a few beams of sunlight pierced the forest canopy, casting dappled shadows on the ground. Listening with his head cocked to one side, the boy could just make out the whisper of the river below, hidden beyond ragged thickets of bamboo. Drawing in a deep breath through his nostrils, he smelled the mouldering leaves and a sour, earthy odor that he recognized as the passing scent of a sloth bear that had wandered by a short while ago. He was also aware of a lingering feline stench where a tiger had marked his domain this morning, though it was so faint that the boy knew there was no longer any danger. Peering up into the tree, he could see his companions, a troop of langur monkeys, sitting amidst the leaves with their long tails hanging down like furry vines. Fringed with silver-grey whiskers, their black faces were alert and wary. The monkeys would warn him if there was any reason to be alarmed, though every nerve in his body was attuned to signals in the air around him. Raising one hand, he touched a spider's web and saw the tiny, eight-legged hunter turn to face him as his finger traced the delicate weave of filaments. One of the monkeys dropped a fig from above. Hitting the ground, it bounced near his foot. The boy picked up the green fruit and sniffed it, then took a bite. It had a bland flavor, still raw, but edible. In addition to his five senses, the boy had a sixth sense too, an uneasy feeling at the back of his neck that warned him sometimes, as it did right now, like an ant crawling under his skin, a restless, prickling sensation that traveled from between his shoulder blades up to the base of his skull. For a moment the boy thought of retreating back into the safety of the tree, but his curiosity had been aroused by a strange object on the ground. It lay in the dead leaves, 2 or 3 strides away, a brightly colored morsel unlike any fruit or flower he'd ever seen before. The monkeys were watching him anxiously from above, waiting to find out what it was that had caught his eye. Edging forward, the boy reached down and touched the unfamiliar object with his fingers. It was no bigger than a pigeon's egg and rustled like a brittle cocoon as he picked it up. There was something hard inside, and the boy sniffed it suspiciously. He could not recognize the smell, though it wasn't unpleasant. When he shook the object, it made no sound. With both fingers, he began to remove the papery skin. The fragrance was stronger now, but there was no fruit inside, only a hard red seed the size of a pebble. Raising it to his mouth, he licked it cautiously and was surprised by a sugary tartness on his tongue. After tasting it again and feeling a stickiness on his fingertips, he put the sweet in his mouth and sucked on it greedily. Turning back towards the banyan tree, he felt a prickle again along his spine, but the sour, sweet flavor in his mouth made him ignore the warning. Stepping around a fallen branch, he flexed his arms, preparing to pull himself back up into the tree. But at that moment he heard a hissing sound and saw a movement in the dust around his feet. Instinctively, the boy leapt aside, thinking it was a snake. But before he could escape, a noose tightened around his ankle, yanking him into the air so that he was hanging upside down. The sweet in his mouth popped out as he yelled and waved both arms, trying frantically to touch the ground with his outstretched fingers, though the dry leaves and dusty earth were just out of reach.